Somewhere between 75 and 85, most people quietly start losing pieces of themselves, a little balance here, a little memory there, a little less energy to call a friend or try something new, until one day independence simply isn't guaranteed anymore. But every so often you meet someone in their late 70s or early 80s who is sharp, steady on their feet, socially alive, and mentally still curious about the world. It isn't luck. According to research referenced by institutions like Harvard and the Mayo Clinic, it almost always comes down to a small, specific set of daily habits, done consistently, in the right way at the right time and in the right amount. Get any one of them wrong and the benefit quietly disappears. Tonight, we're counting down 6 things that, if you're still doing them properly between 75 and 85, place you in a truly rare category. For each one, we'll show you exactly what the research says, the right timing, the right strategy, and the right way to actually do it, not just the habit itself. Stay until number 1 because it ties every other habit on this list directly to your brain. If this kind of practical, research-backed breakdown helps you, go ahead and subscribe now. We release healthy aging and brain health videos like this every single week. Here's something worth sitting with before we begin. Researchers studying healthy aging have repeatedly found that the difference between someone who declines quickly after 75 and someone who stays sharp and independent well into their 80s usually isn't one dramatic factor. It's the quiet, compounding effect of a handful of habits, done correctly day after day for years. That means the 6 things we're about to cover aren't just a checklist to glance at once, they're a specific research-backed formula, and getting the details right, the timing, the amount, the method matters just as much as doing the habit at all. Number 6. Hydration. Hydration might sound basic, but researchers consistently point out that thirst sensation naturally weakens with age, meaning many adults over 75 walk around mildly dehydrated without ever feeling thirsty enough to notice. According to guidance referenced by the Mayo Clinic, even mild dehydration in older adults has been associated with confusion, dizziness, and immeasurably increased fall risk, since both blood pressure regulation and balance depend partly on adequate fluid levels. Studies on cognitive performance have linked fluid loss of just 1 to 2% of body weight to noticeable declines in short-term concentration and memory recall, numbers small enough that most people never connect them to their afternoon fogginess or unsteadiness. Here's the right way to actually apply this. General hydration guidance for adults over 75 suggests roughly 6 to 8 cups of fluid daily, spread evenly across the day rather than consumed all at once, since the body absorbs and uses smaller, steady amounts far more effectively than a single large glass. The right timing matters too. Front-loading fluid intake earlier in the day and tapering off 2 to 3 hours before bed helps avoid disrupted sleep from nighttime bathroom trips, while still meeting the daily target. Keeping a water bottle visibly within reach throughout the day has been shown to meaningfully increase intake in older adults who no longer rely on thirst as a reliable cue, and water-rich foods like watermelon, cucumber, and clear soups can help close the gap for anyone who struggles to drink large amounts of plain water. Individual fluid needs should always be confirmed with a doctor, particularly for anyone managing heart or kidney conditions, since the right amount genuinely varies person to person. Caregivers and family members are often encouraged to watch for subtle signs of dehydration in older relatives, including dry lips, darker urine color, or unexplained fatigue, since these signs are frequently mistaken for ordinary aging rather than a correctable hydration issue. Electrolyte balance deserves a mention here too, since plain water alone doesn't always replace sodium and potassium lost through normal daily activity, which is why some geriatric nutrition guidance suggests including at least one electrolyte-containing beverage, like a small glass of milk or a low-sugar electrolyte drink, particularly on warmer days or after physical activity. One more overlooked detail: certain medications commonly prescribed to older adults, including some diuretics used for blood pressure, can increase fluid loss beyond what people realize, making it worth specifically discussing individual hydration targets with a doctor rather than relying on generic daily totals. Number 5. Resistance training. After age 75, the body faces an accelerating challenge called sarcopenia, the progressive loss of muscle mass and strength. Research published through Harvard Health Publishing estimates adults can lose 3 to 8% of muscle mass per decade after 30, with that rate accelerating sharply after 60, and again after 75 without active intervention. This connects directly to fall prevention and balance, since weaker leg and core muscles are strongly linked to both higher fall risk and slower recovery after a stumble, one of the leading causes of lost independence in this age group according to data referenced by the Centers for Disease Control. The right strategy here is simpler than most people expect. Research on resistance training in adults over 75, including studies referenced by the National Institute on Aging, shows that even light resistance band training performed 2 to 3 times per week, on non-consecutive days to allow muscle recovery, produces measurable improvements in muscle strength, balance, and functional independence, tasks like rising from a chair or climbing stairs unassisted. The right way to start is with just 2 or 3 foundational movements: seated leg extensions, resistance band rows, and sit-to-stand repetitions, each done for 8 to 12 controlled repetitions, prioritizing proper form over speed or heavy resistance. Protein timing plays a supporting role as well, with nutrition researchers generally recommending a source of protein within an hour or 2 after resistance training, since muscle protein synthesis becomes less efficient with age and benefits from that nearby nutritional support. Consistency outperforms intensity here. Research shows older adults who train lightly but regularly see comparable long-term strength gains to those who push harder but skip sessions inconsistently. Balance work deserves specific attention alongside strength. Since muscle strength and balance are related but distinct systems, physical therapists often recommend adding simple standing balance exercises, like holding onto a chair while lifting one foot off the ground for 10 to 15 seconds, 2 or 3 times a week alongside resistance training, since this directly targets fall prevention in a way that strength training alone doesn't fully cover. Progression matters too. Once a movement feels easy for 2 consecutive weeks, gradually increasing resistance band tension or repetition count helps continue building strength rather than plateauing, though any increase should stay gradual and pain-free, stopping and consulting a doctor if joint pain rather than normal muscle fatigue develops. Warm-up matters more at this age than younger adults often assume. A few minutes of gentle marching in place or arm circles before resistance work helps prepare joints and reduce injury risk, something physical therapists working with older clients emphasize far more than they do with younger patients. Number 4. Social engagement. Of everything on this list, social engagement may be the most consistently underestimated. The Harvard Study of Adult Development, one of the longest-running studies on human health ever conducted, tracking participants for over 80 years, found that the strength and quality of a person's relationships was one of the most powerful predictors of healthy aging, in some analyses mattering more than cholesterol levels for long-term outcomes. Separate research referenced by Johns Hopkins has linked chronic loneliness in older adults to a meaningfully increased risk of cognitive decline, with some studies estimating around a 40% higher dementia risk for socially isolated seniors compared to those with regular social contact. The right strategy is built on quality over quantity. Researchers studying social engagement consistently find that a small number of genuinely meaningful interactions, a weekly card game, a standing phone call with a close friend, or regular family visits, provide more measurable protective benefit than a large number of shallow, brief interactions. The right timing tends to favor consistency over spontaneity, scheduling a recurring weekly or twice-weekly social activity, rather than relying on interactions happening whenever they happen to occur, since regular structure has been associated with more reliable long-term engagement. The right way to maximize the benefit is choosing interactions that require real participation, conversation, shared activities, or games, rather than passive presence like simply sitting in the same room as others, since active engagement is what recruits memory recall and emotional processing, the same brain functions researchers link to reduced cognitive decline risk. Intergenerational engagement carries its own specific benefit worth mentioning. Researchers studying social connection across age groups have found that interactions with younger family members or community members, not just peers, tend to introduce more cognitive novelty into conversation, touching on unfamiliar topics, technology, or perspectives, which may provide an added layer of mental stimulation beyond same-age social contact alone. For adults who've lost a spouse or close friends, researchers emphasize that rebuilding social engagement, even starting small through a single weekly group activity, has been associated with measurable improvements in mood and cognitive engagement within a matter of months, making it never too late to rebuild this particular habit. Quick pause here. If you're finding value in these numbers, make sure you've subscribed. We're covering the exact resistance band routine geriatric physical therapists recommend for adults over 75 next week. Now back to the countdown. Number 3, sleep quality. Sleep quality changes significantly with age, and melatonin production, the hormone that regulates circadian rhythm and helps initiate deep sleep, naturally declines over time, part of why many older adults experience lighter, more fragmented sleep than they did decades earlier. This matters well beyond simply feeling tired. Research referenced by Washington University School of Medicine has linked poor sleep quality to increased buildup of amyloid plaques in the brain, a protein associated with Alzheimer's disease, suggesting deep sleep plays a direct role in the brain's overnight waste-clearing process. The right strategy starts with timing. Sleep researchers generally recommend adults over 75 aim for 7 to 8 hours nightly, anchored by a consistent bedtime and, just as importantly, a consistent wake time, even on days without obligations, since an irregular wake time is one of the most common ways circadian rhythm gets disrupted. The right way to protect sleep quality involves reducing screen exposure in the hour before bed, since blue light has been shown to suppress natural melatonin release right when the body needs it most, and getting natural sunlight exposure earlier in the day, which helps anchor circadian rhythm and improve nighttime melatonin timing. Limiting caffeine after early afternoon and keeping the bedroom cool and dark round out the strategy most sleep specialists recommend for older adults specifically dealing with lighter, more easily disrupted sleep patterns. Napping deserves a specific note here, since many older adults nap during the day without realizing it can undermine nighttime sleep quality. Sleep researchers generally suggest limiting naps to 20 to 30 minutes and taking them before mid-afternoon, which allows rest without significantly reducing nighttime sleep pressure. Medication timing can also affect sleep quality in ways people rarely consider. Certain common medications taken later in the day have been associated with more fragmented sleep in older adults, making it worth reviewing medication schedules with a doctor or pharmacist specifically through the lens of sleep quality, not just the condition each medication treats. Consistency in nightly duration matters almost as much as the total hours themselves. Some nights at 5 hours and others at 9 tends to disrupt circadian rhythm nearly as much as short sleep on its own, according to researchers studying sleep regularity in older adults. Number 2, purposeful cognitive challenge. This is different from simply staying busy, and the distinction defines whether this habit actually works. Researchers studying cognitive reserve, a concept developed extensively through work at Columbia University by researcher Yakov Stern and colleagues, describe it as the brain's ability to improvise and find alternate pathways for completing tasks even as some neural connections decline with age. The Rush University Memory and Aging Project, a long-running study following thousands of older adults, found that adults who regularly engage in cognitively stimulating activities show measurably slower rates of cognitive decline, even when their brains show physical signs of aging on imaging scans, a pattern researchers attribute directly to stronger cognitive reserve. The right strategy is choosing genuine novelty over comfortable repetition. Researchers consistently find that activities you've already mastered for decades, however enjoyable, provide far less cognitive benefit than something new and mildly difficult, since neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new connections, is triggered most strongly when the brain is challenged just past its comfort zone, not while comfortably coasting on existing skill. The right way to apply this practically includes learning a new language, picking up an unfamiliar musical instrument, working through genuinely challenging puzzles rather than easy repetitive ones, or learning new technology skills. The right timing and dose, based on available research, favors short, frequent sessions, 20 to 30 minutes several times a week, over occasional long sessions, since spaced repetition and regular exposure appear to build cognitive reserve more effectively than infrequent, marathon efforts. Variety also matters more than most people expect. Researchers studying cognitive reserve generally recommend rotating between different types of challenge, verbal activities like learning vocabulary in a new language, spatial activities like puzzles or navigation-based games, and fine motor activities like learning an instrument, since engaging different cognitive domains appears to build more resilient, broadly distributed cognitive reserve than repeatedly challenging the same narrow skill. It's also worth noting that difficulty should scale over time. An activity that felt challenging 6 months ago but now feels easy has likely stopped providing the same cognitive benefit, meaning periodically increasing difficulty, a harder puzzle level, a more advanced lesson, or a new skill entirely, helps sustain the effect long-term rather than plateauing on a single familiar challenge. Number 1, brain health. Everything on this list ultimately points toward the same destination, which is why brain health earns the top spot as the defining marker of truly staying independent after 75. According to data from the Alzheimer's Association, roughly 1 in 9 Americans aged 65 and older lives with Alzheimer's disease, and prevalence rises sharply with each additional decade, making brain health protection increasingly urgent precisely in the 75 to 85 range we're discussing tonight. The encouraging part comes from the Lancet Commission on Dementia Prevention, a major global research report estimating that up to 40% of dementia cases worldwide may be linked to modifiable lifestyle factors, including several already covered tonight: physical activity, social engagement, sleep quality, and cognitive engagement. The right strategy for brain health is treating it as the sum of every habit already discussed, not a separate, isolated task. Nutrition plays a specific supporting role here as well. Researchers studying brain health have highlighted omega-3 fatty acids, particularly DHA, as important structural components of brain cell membranes, with observational studies linking higher omega-3 intake, commonly from fatty fish like salmon, to better cognitive performance in older adults. Vitamin C, an antioxidant abundant in fruits and vegetables, has been studied for its role in reducing oxidative stress in brain tissue, one mechanism researchers associate with age-related cognitive decline, while adequate protein intake supports neurotransmitters involved in mood, focus, and memory recall. The right way to protect memory specifically is understanding the difference between normal, mild changes, like occasionally misplacing keys, and more concerning patterns linked to dementia, such as repeatedly forgetting entire recent conversations or becoming disoriented in familiar places, the latter warranting a conversation with a doctor rather than being dismissed as ordinary aging. The right timing for building brain health is simply now. Researchers studying cognitive reserve and dementia prevention consistently find measurable benefits appearing within months of consistently improving sleep, physical activity, and social engagement together, not years, meaning this list isn't only for people who've always done it right, it's equally relevant for anyone starting today. Physical activity connects back to brain health through a specific mechanism worth understanding. Researchers studying blood flow to the brain have found that regular movement, including the resistance training covered earlier, improves cardiovascular health broadly, which in turn supports healthy blood flow to brain tissue, since the brain relies on a constant, well-regulated supply of oxygen and nutrients to function properly. This is one reason researchers rarely study these 6 habits in isolation: physical activity supporting blood flow, sleep clearing metabolic waste, nutrition supplying structural building blocks, and cognitive challenge building new connections all work through different biological pathways that ultimately converge on the same organ. Independence itself, the ability to manage daily tasks, medications, finances, and mobility without assistance, has been specifically linked in aging research to preserved cognitive function more than to any single physical measure alone, reinforcing why brain health sits at the very top of tonight's list rather than any of the physical habits that came before it. Family members are often encouraged to view brain health this way too, not as a single test score or diagnosis to wait for, but as the cumulative result of hydration, movement, connection, sleep, and mental challenge working together quietly every single day. Let's run through everything one more time, along with the right way to apply each. Number 6 was hydration, 6 to 8 cups spread through the day, tapering before bed. Number 5 was resistance training, 2 to 3 light sessions weekly with proper form and post-workout protein. Number 4 was social engagement, a small number of genuinely meaningful, recurring interactions rather than passive company. Number 3 was sleep quality, a consistent 7 to 8 hour schedule protected by morning sunlight and evening screen limits. Number 2 was purposeful cognitive challenge, short, frequent sessions of genuinely new, mildly difficult activities. And number 1, tying every other habit together, was brain health itself, built through the combined right timing and right strategy of everything covered tonight, not any single habit in isolation. It's worth noticing how tightly these 6 habits reinforce each other once the right timing and right strategy are in place for each. Better sleep quality makes the next day's resistance training feel more manageable. Regular social engagement naturally pulls in more physical movement and mental stimulation through shared activity and conversation. Proper hydration supports the steady energy needed to show up for all of the above. This is precisely why researchers studying healthy aging rarely find a single habit responsible for who stays independent into their 80s. It's the compounding effect of getting several of these right, consistently, at the same time. None of tonight's 6 habits require rare genetics, expensive equipment, or dramatic willpower. They require getting the timing, the amount, and the method right, and then simply repeating it week after week for as long as it takes to become simply how you live. This video is for general educational purposes only and is not a substitute for personalized medical advice. Please consult your doctor before beginning any new exercise routine, changing your diet, or making significant lifestyle changes, especially if you are managing an existing health condition. If tonight's breakdown helped you see one of these habits differently, drop a comment letting us know which one you're going to apply the right way starting this week. And if you want more research-backed videos on healthy aging and longevity, go ahead and subscribe. We release new breakdowns like this every week, always focused on the specific timing, strategy, and method the research actually supports, not just generic advice you've already heard 100 times before.